We have an update tonight on the Jefferson Parish boy who was suspended for having a BB gun in his room during virtual learning. Well, now the school board is looking to challenge the constitutionality of a state law that was recently passed giving students more rights during virtual learning. Mike McDaniel has that story.
It doesn't surprise me anymore,
For Nyron Harrison, the agenda for a special called meeting of the Jefferson Parish School Board should come as a shock, but doesn't.
I don't know what to trust and who to trust.
On the Wednesday morning agenda, litigation to determine the constitutionality of the Kamari Harrison Act, which is named after his 9-year-old son. The fourth grader at Woodmere Elementary was recently suspended and recommended for expulsion for handling what turned out to be a BB gun in his bedroom during virtual learning. That led to widely supported legislation that became law earlier this month. Giving students more rights during virtual learning, part of the law set up an appeal for disciplinary action, something Kamari still hasn't been granted by the Jefferson Parish school system.
The state has spoken and the state has said these children are entitled to heightened rights.
Attorney Chelsea Cusimano, who represents the Harrison family, says under the law, 4 students in the Jefferson Parish school system should retroactively be entitled to an appeal process because of disciplinary action during virtual learning. Instead, the school board questions the law.
They're asking taxpayers to pour a copious amount of cash into challenging the constitutionality of a statute that is perfectly constitutional.
As a parent, Nyron says his son's experience is too important and doesn't want other families to face the same situation.
There was my son that had to go to the state capitol 4 times and have the courage to sit and testify and stand and testify in front of legislation.
Mike McDaniel, Eyewitness News.
That board meeting is set for 9 a.m. tomorrow. We did reach out to the school system this afternoon for comments specifically about that agenda item, but we never heard back.